On this episode of the Red and Gold Report, we're going to be breaking down the Chiefs' heartbreaking last-second defeat in Baltimore this Sunday night. We're also going to be looking at the Chiefs players who still played well. We're going to be looking at why an injured Ravens team was able to beat the Chiefs. And we're going to be looking at some worries that Chiefs Kingdom has coming out of the game. And hey, if you want your weekly Chiefs news brought to you by a guy who bleeds red, then subscribe to this channel. Actually, that makes no sense. Everybody bleeds red. Even Raiders fans bleed red. Just hit that subscribe button to subscribe to the Red and Gold Report. First, let's talk the storyline of the game. The game was a quicker back and forth than an Olympic ping pong game, but unlike Olympic ping pong, it was actually really entertaining to watch until the end, at least, right? KC scored more in the first quarter, then Baltimore scored more in the second, the Chiefs more in the third. The Ravens went back up on top with 3 minutes and 14 seconds left in the fourth quarter, and then the Chiefs were driving down the field for the victory when running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire fumbled the ball to lose the game for the Chiefs. Creating this back and forth in the game was the Ravens' inability to stop the Chiefs' passing attack and the Chiefs' inability to stop the Ravens' running game. It all came down to who made a mistake last. It was all summed up by time of possession. The Chiefs had the ball for 24 minutes, the Ravens 36. And if you need a good laugh, just watch the Ravens coach John Harbaugh's post-game press conference. He looked as giddy after the win as I do around a plate of ribs from Joe's. Moving on, the player of the game for the Chiefs has to be Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes, he just kept answering the Ravens back every single drive. The only thing that stopped him from winning was Clyde's fumble at the end of the game. Mahomes went 24 for 31 with 343 yards of passing, 3 touchdowns, and was able to avoid every sack during the night. He didn't get sacked. He made some amazing cross-body throws and consistently showed good pocket presence, stepping up to avoid the pressure. The game did mark Mahomes' first loss and first interception in the month of September in his career, but he was still amazing. Now, before we get to what worries me about this game and why we lost, here's what Chiefs fans should still be excited about coming out of this game. We have to be excited about Tyrann Mathieu, don't we? I mean, after missing week 1 with an injury, Tyrann had 2 interceptions and 6 tackles for the night. Tyrann intercepted Lamar Jackson's first pass of the game, took it back for a touchdown. He caught another interception, and he defended another pass in the end zone in the fourth quarter. He had a great game coming back from injury. Another player the Chiefs fans should really be excited about is rookie Nick Bolton. Look, I know he actually wasn't amazing in the game, but he has already proven to be the Chiefs' best linebacker in only his second game, and he was given more playing time this week. He also made the first tackle on the first snap of the game for the defense. And like normal, we got to be excited about Travis Kelce, don't we? Kelce had 109 yards receiving, including a 46-yard catch, where he looked like a running back out in space. He was incredible. But on the other end of things, here's what Chiefs fans should be worried about coming out of this game. And well, this is why we lost the game. The Chiefs' biggest issue is defense. The Chiefs' defensive line looked like they were being pushed around on figure skates and tutus. The Chiefs allowed 165 yards of rushing by halftime. And get this, after just 2 games, the Chiefs have allowed over 400 yards of rushing. That's over 70 yards worse than the second worst defense in the league. That's 4 times more than the top defenses so far after 2 games. And what was concerning wasn't just that the Ravens were able to rack up that many rushing yards. What's concerning is they did it with a backup offensive line and a 4th-string running back. It is time to hit the panic button on the Chiefs defense. What in the world is going on? Well, it's problems with just plain old school football. Look, I absolutely love Chris Jones. I think he's the second best defensive tackle in football. But he's moving to defensive end, and he got taken advantage of on Sunday night. Every football coach knows that there's this nuance to defensive end play called outside contain. And time after time, Jones was caught jumping inside to the inside gap and losing that outside contain that defensive ends have to sustain. That allowed the Ravens to keep bouncing run plays outside for huge gains. The other defensive ends were even worse. Frank Clark returned from a hamstring injury to play really poorly for the Chiefs. He was a non-factor, consistently taking outside angles, getting washed out of plays over and over again, and he ended up with just 2 tackles. He looked somewhere between injured and just not interested in the game. Alex Okafor looked like he was in slow motion, and Mike Dana was lost in run defense. Adding to the Chiefs' end problems, the duo of Reed and Nadi at tackle, they've just been underperforming. Through the first 2 games, the Chiefs' starting defensive tackles have a combined 6 tackles, 0 sacks, 0 tackles for loss. That's nearly non-existent. Also, not helping the Chiefs defense is a linebacker situation. Anthony Hitchens played poorly again. He got easily blocked out of the play on a touchdown run that went right through his hole early in the game. He just did not have the speed to keep up with Lamar Jackson on quarterback scrambles. Didn't have the speed once the running backs hit the corner. Ben Neiman also played poorly, but we know he's out there just because Willie Gay's injured right now. And that's why the Chiefs lost the game. The defensive line, the linebackers, they played so poorly, they couldn't even slow the Ravens down. Look, I love my Chiefs. I'm still pulling for a Super Bowl this season. It's going to happen, right? But this defensive problem is not just going to go away. I've been talking about the concerns at defensive end and linebacker for months. The team should seriously consider bringing in a free agent at defensive end like Olivier Vernon or Trent Murphy and allow Chris Jones to move back inside. I would say to consider a trade for Chandler Jones from Arizona, but the reality of the Chiefs' salary cap situation, it makes that nearly impossible. But the defensive line issue, it is not going away, and it got exposed on Sunday night. The other issue that Chiefs fans need to be worried about is starting running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Clyde fumbled the ball with 1 minute and 20 seconds left in the game. That lost the game for us. He cannot do that. All the Chiefs needed was a field goal. You cannot hold the ball with one hand in that situation. No excuses. After 2 games, Clyde only has 89 yards of rushing. He's averaging just under 3.3 yards per carry, which that would have qualified for worse than 50th last season. He also has 0 rushing touchdowns after 2 games. 1 second quarter run kind of sums up what we've seen from him. He was given the ball in an outside misdirection play early in the second quarter. He had the entire left side of the field wide open for him. Instead of decisively heading up the field, he hesitated and stretched the play out. Then he just couldn't move fast enough to hit the corner. What should have been an easy 10-yard gain somehow was held to just 3 yards. The Chiefs need to consider trying more carries from McKinnon next week. If they cannot get the running game going, wow, it's going to keep leaving our struggling defense out on the field for too much of the game. So our rushing defense and our rushing offense, that's why we lost the game. And it is what Chiefs fans should be worried about heading into week 3 of the season. Next up, let's talk about who gets medals for mediocrity in the game. Players who didn't play bad, but didn't play great. First off is the Chiefs' receiving options, not named Kelsey or Hill. The Ravens' defensive game plan was to shut down Tyreek Hill. They did that successfully by double or triple teaming him throughout the entire game. So while Kelsey still had a great performance, the game was a test for Chiefs receivers not named Hill or Kelsey. How'd they perform? Well, they kind of get a medal for mediocrity. Pringle, Hardman, and Robinson all had over 45 yards, but none of them had more than 63. They were targeted 14 times, but only brought in 10 of those passes. Now, none of these 3 played great or horrible. They were magnificently mediocre. Also playing mediocre was starting safety Daniel Sorensen. Sorensen, he was a mixed bag on Sunday night. He had a missed tackle for a gain of 18 yards that didn't need to happen earlier in the game. Then he blew a coverage in the third quarter for a 42-yard touchdown pass that was pretty ugly. But then on the flip side, he had a nice tackle for loss in the third quarter on an outside run. And in the very next play, he had a sack. So some good, some bad out of Sorensen. Next, let's complain about the refs. There was a bad holding call on Demarcus Robinson late in the first quarter, but what in the world was up with that call to give the Ravens a first down on the Tyrann Mathieu play that they said was illegal contact. I mean, that was garbage. He barely touched the player. He just kind of hand checked them. The NFL has to make those calls reviewable. So to wrap up breaking down the game, the Chiefs are still the best team in the NFL. They still have Mahomes, Hill, and Kelsey. But our path to the Super Bowl is going to need to go through improving a defense that has just not shown up the first 2 games of the season. Thanks for watching the Red and Gold Report. If you want game breakdowns and previews brought to you each week this season on YouTube, then you gotta make sure you hit the subscribe button below this video. Thanks for watching, and go Chiefs!